Welcome back to HVAC Shop Talk. Wait, that doesn't sound right. What I'm going to do now is turn it over to the former co-host, who's now the supreme host of a different podcast, to get this sucker kicked off properly. Brent, will you help me out, please?
I got you, brother. I got you. Hello and welcome to the tool. Wait a minute. Welcome to HVAC Shop Talk.
That sounded nice. That's great. I haven't seen stuff that good since I watched old Cubs ball games. That's really good.
That's what I'm going for. I'm going for that like over-the-top announcer kind of deal, you know?
Oh, I like that. Just a step below door number 3 sort of person. It's door number 3 with a brand new Navac vacuum pump. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I want to talk to you, because of stuff like this, the stuff that you get that no one else has yet. You've done that for several years, starting back at the IM Manifold, the Fieldpiece stuff. But this Navac stuff, I saw it a few months ago at TrueTech, and I didn't know if it was going to be like cheap crap or good stuff. Tell me what you got to play around with.
Full disclosure, I just got it today. I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. I can't tell you one way or another, so just kind of take that for what it is. I've just had a handful of experience with it. I got a vacuum pump, which is an 8 CFM. It's a DC motor in that thing. I don't know the weight on it yet. I hadn't put it on the scale yet. I'm going to put it on the scale, but it looks pretty neat. I know there's a version that has a digital micron gauge built into the vacuum. The one I have has an analog micron gauge built into the vacuum. That's great to show you what your pump's doing, but I don't think that's really a great indication of what you're doing on the system. Other tools I got a set of analog gauges, but the analog gauges are pretty neat. They're not like what your normal setup would be. Like they have a big square head around it. It's very protective. These things would be hard to break. They really would. I got a manual swaging tool. It's not like the hydraulic swager like a lot of you guys have seen. This is kind of a manual deal. Got a tubing cutter, flaring block, a reamer, and a deburring tool. Got a handful of things to try out, so we're going to see how cool they are.
Man, I'm a little upset because I looked through their website and I was really hoping that one of the tools, well, a couple tools that you were going to mention. Number one, there is some sort of electric flaring tool that has a battery on it that I wanted you to try out because I thought you'd be great for that. And there's some sort of charging machine that has like this vacuum pump deal built into the inside of it.
Yes. Steven Reardon actually has both of those. So they sent some stuff to me. They sent some stuff to Steven, and I think maybe Brian Orr and maybe Gary McCready's got some stuff too, I think. So between the four of us, I think we got their whole gamut of tools. But yeah, Steven has the battery-powered flaring tool, whatever that thing is. And then there's like a refrigerant charging thing, like you said. It's got a built-in scale, and I think it's a recovery machine and a vacuum pump all together. I mean, it's kind of wild.
I have never seen anything like that before. I watched a little video on it, and I'm glad you said it was a DC motor on your vacuum pumps because I listened to Steven's running. I was like, what is the sound of that? It sounds like that Fieldpiece thing, and it must be the DC motors.
That's what it is.
So that's good. Now, before we go on, DC motor and the Fieldpiece stuff that you have, like or dislike?
I love it. I love it, dude. The Fieldpiece vacuum pump's the best vacuum pump I've ever owned. And it's going to be hard to top. With this Navac deal, it really is going to be hard to top. I can't say enough good things about the Fieldpiece vacuum pump.
And that's the 8 CFM. This is the one that has a DC motor, and the 5 has an AC motor. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep. I think it's the VP85 is the 8 CFM, and then the VP55 is the 5 CFM.
Wow, so it is the best one you've ever owned. Have you tried both of them, or is it just the 8?
I've just tried the 8. I haven't tried the 5.
Okay. Well, this is cool. This is definitely cool. For reference, the little device we're talking about that, I don't know what you want to call it, electric flaring tool, is the NEF6LI, looks like. And the charging machine is the NRC62i. So I'm going to look forward to seeing stuff from Steven about that, because that thing is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And what I sort of wanted to gauge looking at these tools is whether or not they're going to be high-end tools, or they're going to be like some kind of weird entry-level thing like Harbor Freight gauges or something like that. What's your first impression of the quality?
They're pretty stout. Built pretty good from what I could see, you know, just messing around with them a little bit. They're built good. Everything feels solid and sturdy. Nothing feels cheap whatsoever. So I think they're going to be a pretty good little tool.
You think they're going to give Fieldpiece a run for their money? Don't lie. They're not, are they?
Like I said, that VP85 is hard to top in the vacuum pump market. But whatever they want to call it, electronic charging machine or whatever, that's a very cool concept that I think they're the first ones to come out with something like that. So that eliminates your recovery machine, your vacuum pump, and I think your scale. So that's 3 tools in one. Now that tool does look a little heavy and it looks a little bulky, but instead of having to bring out all 3 of those, you just grab one tool off the truck, one box, and you got all of them built in.
You brought up a very good point here about the weight, and I'm going to see if I can't locate that real quick.
See if you can find the weight on the vacuum pump, because I looked for that earlier and I couldn't find it.
Okay, just for reference, before we look at the vacuum pump, the charging machine, speaking of stuff that is stout, you're going to have to get your reps in because it is 47 pounds. That is hefty. Now we're going to go to the one that Steven has, the NRP 8DI, and see if we can't find some information on it. The weight of both the vacuum pumps, no matter which one you choose, is 25.35 pounds. I don't know where that stands. I don't know how much vacuum pumps weigh. I imagine that's probably slightly heavier than average. Do you know what your Fieldpiece weighs?
I don't. I probably should, being that I run the Tool Pros podcast. That probably should be something I should know, but I don't. I don't know if it's the way the weight is distributed with the Fieldpiece, but the Fieldpiece does seem a little lighter than Navac.
Everyone that has that Fieldpiece really loves it. I have never tried it. I hope to one day. I have a very trusty vacuum pump, the JB, but everybody seems to think it's the greatest thing ever. So I think it's going to be tough to beat the Fieldpiece for the time being because they look like they're on the cutting edge too. And my first impression of looking at a vacuum pump with the gauge built in is I'm going to eventually dislike the gauge.
I'm not going to trust it. I'm not going to use it. It's kind of a cool concept in thought, but in execution, I don't think it's going to be there.
Yeah, I remember talking to, I want to say it was Bergman about this, about people having things that are built into other things that don't necessarily need to be, like micron gauges built into gauge sets, like the S-Man set. This sort of reminds me of that. Something that's just like this compromise that's not really good for actual service work or installing.
Bergman says it's kind of like marketing, driving engineering kind of thing.
Oh, that's right. The marketing, driving engineering. That's
okay,
it.
I found it here. The VP85 Fieldpiece 8 CFM vacuum pump without oil is 28 pounds, and then it says the VP55 is 30 pounds.
Oh, so the 55 is heavier. That AC motor must be a little heavier than that.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. I remember going over that with the Fieldpiece guys when they were on the podcast.
I'll tell Fieldpiece that I will never buy the 5 CFM. The 8 will be the only one bought. It's lighter. It's more powerful. It's just better in general.
Exactly. Russ Hardy, he works for Fieldpiece, and his dad actually started the company. We had him on the Tool Pros podcast a few weeks back, and that's what I told him. I was like, man, why would anybody even buy the 5 CFM? I guess if it comes down to money, that would be the only thing. It is a little bit cheaper, the 5 CFM, but in all honesty, the 8 CFM just blows it out of the water in all categories.
What's the price difference between the two?
If we go to True Tech Tools, because guys, this is where you guys need to go to buy any of your HVAC tools. Just so you know, if you need HVAC tools, go to truetechtools.com and you can use the promo code ToolPros and get 8% off and probably a pat on the back. And if you wanted to, you could probably use the Shop Talk code, but that's just if you're desperate.
I've heard that the Shop Talk code causes chlamydia.
Wow, dude, that is pretty rough.
I know. We're trying to tie the sciences together. We don't know how the leap is made. There were 2 guys. We just don't know how it happened. They were fairly promiscuous people, though, so it may not be our code.
Be the case.
Stuff that takes you off guard during the podcast. And you're sitting there, why the hell did he say that?
Chlamydia. All right. $352 at True Tech Tools, $352 for the 5 CFM Fieldpiece. 8 CFM is $484. So
I think I'd go for the 8.
Yeah, $120, $130 more. You get the 8 CFM. You get a much better pump, lighter weight.
Well, let me ask you this. Since you got the pump, do you have the new AccuTools hoses yet?
No, I do not. I wish I did. I really wish I did. Billy, he's my co-host on the Tool Pros podcast. Billy's been talking with Dennis of AccuTools about coming on, and he wanted to wait till it was time to release the hoses before he came on. So I know they're pretty close. Jim Bergman just released a little photo. I guess it's like a marketing photo. It has the hoses and the fittings and the carrying case and all that good stuff for the hoses. It's coming soon. I can feel it.
What's your current setup look like as far as hoses? Are you using Appion?
I don't know what brand hoses they are. I do have 2 half-inch hoses. I don't know who makes them. They're black. They're just black vacuum hoses. I don't know if they're Appion or what.
For the love of God, they're probably Hillmore.
Oh, God, don't say that.
I'm not trying to joke around, and I've always said you got to be straight up about the tools. I like Hillmore's bender, I like their swager, but by God, those hoses are horrible.
They are. They are. They really are. Yeah, honestly, Yellow Jacket, I know Yellow Jacket sponsored this podcast, and I'm not saying that just because, but Yellow Jacket makes the best hoses out there.
Yeah,
As far
they
as
make
just
good
general
hoses.
hose. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you know what? In all honesty, I had the Hillmore Swager and not the Yellow Jacket. My brother has the Yellow Jacket, but the Hillmore Swager really won me over. So it's not all bad about Hillmore. Now, I imagine the HVAC hell is full of Hillmore hoses and nut drivers. That's what I imagine.
Well,
And a whole bunch of Ryobi stuff that says tool only.
yeah, exactly. No batteries around.
Your stuff is Milwaukee. You bleed red, right?
You know, I do. I really like the Milwaukee platform as far as like battery powered stuff. I do have some Dewalt stuff. I'm trying to get more Dewalt stuff. I'm trying to spread out the love a little bit. But like I've said on our podcast many times, Milwaukee's been really good to Billy and I. They've had our back since we started the podcast. So I feel very obligated to give back and give them some love. But whoever makes the best tool, I'm on board with.
Something I think I saw on your Facebook group, which is Tool Pros Podcast Facebook group, you guys can join that if you don't know about it, is that DeWalt doesn't have a strong 12-volt platform. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is very correct. DeWalt does make a few 12-volt tools. I know they make a drill because I do have the DeWalt 12-volt drill, but as far as variety of tools, the Milwaukee 12-volt platform just blows DeWalt out of the water. And for surface work and things like that, the 12-volt is really very handy. It's a necessity and it's a good option, but DeWalt just doesn't have that many tools on their line.
Let's talk about that. Since you mentioned service work, it's one of the things I had written down. What is your service bag?
I use a Vito MC is what I'm using right now. I'm probably going to upgrade to the MCT, which is a little bit taller one, because I do have like some 10-inch channel locks and stuff in it. Well, I'm sorry, they're not channel locks, 10-inch Nipix water pump pliers and alligator pliers, and they stick out of the top just a bit. I can't zip it all the way up, so I need to get the little bit taller one. So I need to upgrade to the MCT.
MCT. Well, that's Knipix. Brent, don't let me correct you there. It's Knipix. That's how you pronounce that.
The Tool Billy would call them nipple pecs.
Oh, I like that. Nipple pecs. It kind of has a plumbing feel to it because you have pecs built in there and everything. That's why I put my pecs rings on with nipple pecs pliers. Oh, the MCT is a good bag. I like that bag. I actually had that one. That was a good bag. And you have, like you said, your nipple pecs pliers. As far as nut drivers, what do you have? Let's go through your hand tools. What do you trust? Let's start with nut drivers and go on to screwdrivers. What do you have in the bag?
A few of the old Malco nut drivers. I've had those nut drivers for years and years and years. They've been great. I got them stuck in the tool bag. But what I do mostly, if I need a nut driver, I have a Weha multi-bit screwdriver, and I'll just take the chuck out of my drill, which is the Malco reversible chuck, which I'm in love with those things. I got 20 of them on the countertop in here. Take the chuck out, and I put it in the multi-Weha.
All right, let's talk about that crazy-ass Weha screwdriver you bought. Now, that sucker you shipped in from wherever it was, Scandinavia, I don't know, Mother Russia, wherever it came from. Now, what is your opinion of that sucker? Because I think you said that it was more of a controls deal. Is that right?
Yeah, I bought it and I had it for a couple weeks. It's the Weha Speedy driver. It is basically a motorized screwdriver that's the size of a standard screwdriver. You don't have a big bulky drill to carry around, things like this. My hope was that it would take the place of my service drill. So lay the 12-volt Milwaukee down and just use the Weha Speedy driver. The problem that we had is it's just good for control stuff. Like it just doesn't have enough power to pull out really tight screws or to drive tight screws. I didn't have any nut driver options for it. If you were doing like low voltage control work all day long, doing panels, different things like that, now that was an awesome tool for that kind of job. So I ended up selling it to a guy on Instagram who does that kind of work. He says he loves it. He uses it daily.
This screwdriver, does it have enough power? For instance, if you want to take a few door panels off of like an air handler, let's say you go to a package unit on a roof, could you take all the panels off of it with that screwdriver?
Sure, you could. The cool thing about it, though, was that if you wanted to get it started, you could start it manually and then let the motorized mechanism take over once it got it loose enough for it to work. It would keep a charge a long time. It'd have a charge, but just the overall power, you couldn't get it. And they didn't have any nut driver bits for it. at this time that we're talking. And that was partly because it's insulated, so it's rated up to 1,000 volts. So it kind of had like a little rubber O-ring where you slide the bits in and out, so a standard chuck wouldn't fit inside of there. But, that's just kind of those things that you learn as you get the tool. But it was really great for anybody who has controls work. It should be out for sale in North America here by the end of the year or so is what they said.
Okay, let's talk about the service drill that you use. Since you don't use the Weehaw screwdriver for all that stuff, do you use the Milwaukee?
Correct. I got the Generation 2 Milwaukee impact and drill driver set. So I use either one. I don't really care. Both of them sit on the shelf on the little side door on the truck. So I open the door and grab my service bag, and I reach in and grab whichever one I grab, whether it's the impact or the drill, but they're both the 12 volt. And they're the Generation 2, which is the newer ones that just came out recently. So they got a little bit more power, a little bit smaller than the previous models.
To put it in perspective, drills that you might have used at the beginning of your career like 10 years ago, does the M12 just blow the 18 volts out of the water, the previous ones?
Absolutely. M12 that I got now, which is the fuel Generation 2, man, that thing has more power than many 18-volt drills that I've used. Like, I have a standard M18 Milwaukee drill that I bought probably 4 or 5 years ago, and that M12 has just as much power as that one does.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I have little rigid lithium-ion 12-volt, and it's better than a lot of the drills I had when I first started in the trade. And they were, 18-volt XRP Dewalt ones, and these are awesome. But this thing lasts forever and ever. Does a great job. I could drill holes for static pressure testing. I drill holes for knockouts for electrical stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. They've really come such a long way, and they're so small and lightweight. It's perfect for service work.
I found that the only trick is sometimes I have these drill bits, especially these step bits that are, I guess, made for a larger size drill chuck. And sometimes I forget my drill doesn't have that size chuck in it. So it won't fit in the front of the drill.
I haven't ran into that problem yet.
I think it's just on certain step bits, the ones that go larger, like over an inch to cut out the knockout holes. Yep. It's not really an issue on the smaller ones, like the ones we usually use, which are a half inch or 3/4 inch or something.
Yeah, we shouldn't need to go any bigger than 3/4, man.
We shouldn't, but I bought a step bit that does for no apparent reason. So it doesn't fit in any drill except for like the one you plug in, which if it binds, it throws you off of the air handler or furnace or whatever you're working on.
Now that you're talking about that, I'll transition into my larger drill that I have. I have a M18 fuel drill, but it also has what they call a one key. So it's Milwaukee's Bluetooth deal. So you think, what does a drill need Bluetooth for? But basically what you can do is you can go into the app and you can customize all the settings on it. So you can say, I wanted to have this much torque. I wanted to ramp up this fast. I wanted to do this. But the main thing is kickback control on it. You can turn it all the way up. You can turn it all the way down. You can put it in the middle. So if it does bind up and get caught, the drill stops, the clutch engages, and it doesn't sling you off that ladder.
Oh, that's a good point. Now, these M18s now, if the M12s are powerful, then I'm assuming the M18s are very powerful. Are they comparable to like a plug-in drill as far as their power?
Absolutely. They have just as much as a plug-in drill now, and then they're making the batteries last even longer. The rating on your battery powered stuff is, they have the voltage rating, which is your 18 volts, but then they have the amp hours on them. So you get your smaller slim packs, which most drills come with like a 2 amp hour battery, but Milwaukee has 5, and then they have a 9, and they just recently released a 12 amp hour battery.
Holy hell.
I got one of the 9 amp hour batteries, and honestly, I stick it on my Sawzall. You could use that thing all day and it wouldn't go half dead. So I couldn't even imagine what a 12 amp hour would do.
That is incredible. I use Ryobi. Ryobi is like the bottom area. And the biggest one that I have from Ryobi is 2 amp hour.
They recently came out with some new Ryobi ones that I know for a fact there's a 6 amp hour Ryobi out. And I think a 9 is on the way.
Holy crap. I'm going to have to try that just to see if my 18 volt weed whacker can make it through the entire yard.
Get the longer lasting batteries and they should make it.
It really will make it through the yard since I hire a guy to cut the grass.
That's the way to do it. That's the way I cut mine, man.
I used to do that, but I do that now because it's just too crazy around here.
I will be the first one to admit I hate yard work. So many guys look at yard work as like, yeah, it's a man's duty to get out there in the yard and take care of the yard, make it look pretty and all this stuff. But I have no desire. I don't care. I work my ass off in the heat all day. It's like, man, let somebody else cut the grass. I ain't worried about that stuff.
Hey, that's when that new age starts appealing to me because I'll say, I'm a traditional guy. My wife stays at home. I go to work. Everything's traditional here. But all of a sudden, I'm embracing this new age stuff that we're not going to assign gender roles to yard maintenance any longer. because I'm just going to stay out of that. We're going to let the nice gentleman from the church cut the grass. He's charging $45 for 3/4 of an acre. I'm not going to bother him about that. I think it costs me more to walk around the yard and cut the grass at that price.
Dude, that's an awesome price because I get charged $45 for mine, which sounds like about half the size of yours.
I have this huge sprawling area. I thought this guy was going to show up and go, oh, I imagined a completely different yard. This is $75. But he said 45 is fair. I was like, okay, I'll be inside.
You got it, buddy. That's awesome.
Let's get back to your bag contents here. Now, your service bag is going to have a meter in it. Are you still using the Testo cattle prod?
No, I am not. Batteries went dead in it one day, so I swapped it out just for the Fieldpiece.
All right, guys, let me say first of all,
that's honest. That's an honest deal. I know it sounds terrible. One day I was working, the batteries went dead. The Fieldpiece SC56,
the one they no longer make.
Only one they do make. It has the wireless deal and all to it.
I don't think they still make that one. The SC57.
That's the 57. That's what it is. Got the wireless deal on it. For a long time, they swapped to their new series, but they were still making that one only.
I hope they're still making it. I didn't think they were.
Look it up.
Let's find out.
I traded it out, and I'm using the Fieldpiece now. I generally like that Fieldpiece better than the Testo. Of course, I wanted to give the Testo a try and a run for its money.
Well, nobody wants to die.
Yeah.
For the record, no one's going to die. It's just a joke. Testo cattle prod is a Testo 770-3. It's a perfectly safe meter. It just got an unfortunate hashtag early in its life that has no bearing on its performance.
I used it for, 6 months or more, and it never had a hiccup with me whatsoever.
Yeah, I had never had a problem with it. I just did not like the way that it functioned on some of its features. But once I learned how they designed it to function, it always lined up with what they said. I just didn't prefer the way that it did it.
Fieldpiece still has the SC57 on their website.
I'm looking at True Tech Tools here to see if it's over there for sale because that was one of my favorite ones right there.
Oh, wait. Retired SC57 swivel clamp meter.
That is a darn shame. That was a good meter. I'm sure their new meters are good. I haven't had a chance to use any of them but the 660. I call that the fish bat because it is as
huge.
Large as an actual fish bat. It had a great range of features that I don't need, about 75% of them. But it's a good meter. It's good. It's an MB2 from what Greaves says.
The reason I love the SC57 so much is the swivel head for the amp clamp. I heard the podcast you and Ralph did a little while back, and Ralph was talking about how that wasn't a necessity. But, dude, that is such an awesome feature. If I had two side by side, I would absolutely pick the one with the swivel head. And you don't think you'd use it as much, but once you use it, you really do realize what a cool feature that is.
I agree with you. I love the swivel feature. Every time I put a clamp on a wire, it was always facing left, facing right, facing backwards. It'd always spin around. Swivel feature, I can bring it right back to me.
Exactly. You swivel it around and look right at it, and it's perfect, man. The wireless stuff, yeah, I could take that or leave it. But the swivel, I need some swivel in my life.
I like that. Swivel in my life. You know, we have a secret word for every podcast, Brent, and it's going to be hashtag swivel in my life. That's our secret word.
That's it. Secret word of the day, guys.
The secret word comes to find you when you're podcasting. You don't have to find a secret word. They find you.
Yep. So you can win your Cracker Jack prize.
It will be. Let's see what kind of crap we have over here. Oh, this is horrible stuff back here.
I know. I see it all here behind Zach. I'm looking at him on Google Hangouts here, and I can see all this stuff behind him. He's got a pile of shirts and all kind of refrigeration technology stuff, and he said he's going to give away that nice guitar sitting back there too. And
well, everybody's got to die sometime, Brent. Y'all can have it the day after it happens to me. My kids won't even care.
I see some amp probe stuff back there, man. All kind of cool. It looks like a supply house back there. It really does.
It is. You should have seen it when I first stocked it up. Those guys at Refrigeration Technologies are great. They said, whenever it runs out, you just let us know. They sent like 12 boxes full of stuff. It was insane. Holy moly.
I'll have to admit, I've been using the new Calgon. I don't know how you say it. Whatever. That other company, I've been using their coil gun. After hearing the story behind Refrigeration Technologies, it sounds like they came out with the idea first. New Calgon kind of confiscated it. I really would like to try a coil gun from Refrigeration Technologies, but it's kind of one of those things that's not convenient in my supply house. I don't ever see it there.
Well, Brent, we have a solution for that. I'll send you this one right here, and you can test it out.
Send it on over. I'll be glad to test it. We'll give it away. I'll use it once or twice, then we can wash it out and give it to somebody.
Yeah, that's good. You can use it for one of the Instagram deals y'all do or something.
We'll make sure everybody has to follow Shop Talk on Instagram.
That'll work out great since you guys have like 1 million followers and we have 1,000.
Not quite a million. I wish we could do a little better.
How many followers do you have now?
11,300 or something like that.
Good grief, man. You guys are rocking and rolling over there. What's the secret to success on Instagram? Because you got it.
It's just being consistent on Instagram. I think that's the main thing. And I really got into Instagram. Grief said it on here the other day. I said I'm the exact same way. I used to make fun of my wife when she was on it all the time. Like, oh, that's silly. Just pictures, kind of thing. But when I started doing the Tool Pros podcast, I found this whole community that's into tools, and it's just a huge community on Instagram, and everybody is so nice. And it's much different than Facebook, because on Facebook you have the groups and the clicks and everything else. On Instagram, it's individuals and they follow other people that they like. So it's only you and your interest, and you follow somebody else. If you don't like them, you don't follow them, so you don't see their stuff. And so I just really got into it. It's been really cool, and I've met so many nice guys. Of course, I've had them on the podcast, and it's been a cool thing Instagram has, and I want to do it more. I want to be active on them even more than I am now.
Is it Tool Pros Podcast? Is that your tagline on Instagram?
Yep, that's it. That's us, Tool Pros Podcast.
And you mentioned the podcast itself. What do you have coming up there?
On the next podcast will be, me and Billy are going to do ways to keep cool during the summer. So we'll do a list. I don't know if we're going to do 5 ways or 8 ways to keep cool during the summer when working outside.
Is that the only 2 options? 5 or 8? You can't have 7 ways?
Nope, no 7 ways. We're going to do 5 or 8. And, and we're
7's ridiculous. I'm glad you
know.
7. That's
just
ludicrous.
crazy. Yep.
It's like using a number 4 pencil to do a test. It's ridiculous.
So I got a fella from Australia we're going to have on the podcast. He is the manager for Total Tools. It's a large tool store in Australia. They have several different branches. He's a manager for them. So we're going to have them on, talk about the difference between here and there. Talk to Corbett Lunsford. Going to have him on, talk about thermal imagers.
Sweet.
Going to have Milwaukee back on here shortly to talk about all the good stuff that they debuted at their new product symposium a couple weeks ago. Going to get a Dewalt rep on here shortly too. So we got a lot of good stuff coming up.
That is really cool. So Corbett, he's going to have the lowdown on all the home performance gear then.
Yep. He's had a lot of comparisons with the thermal imagers, and I wanted to get somebody who had some experience with it because I'm just not that guy. So hopefully he can come on and kind of shed some light on which ones are the best. This one's better than that one, all that kind of good stuff.
I don't know if this is true or not, but I think Fleur and Hilmer are the same company, aren't they? I'm just kidding.
I think they have some of the same characteristics and traits.
We could say that about several companies. So we'll leave off a few of them, but okay. Don't say anything, Brent. I know what you're thinking already. No, do you use a thermal imager currently?
I don't own one. I've tested the Testo version. I don't remember the number of it. It's been several years ago. And I did test it, and it was great. I tested it out for about 2 weeks, and I did have to send it back to them. But during that time, it found overheating breakers, an overheating motor. It does have its uses in HVAC, and I think it's a very useful tool to have. Is it a necessity? I don't know, but it is very useful, I think.
Do you think you can use it to troubleshoot refrigerant circuit stuff? I advertise that stuff for the amp probe because I think it could do that. Do you see it doing that? Honestly,
if it's good enough, yes.
I pictured reversing valves and stuff like that bleeding by. I don't think you'd use it, but once, maybe in a month, doing that sort of thing. I think predominantly like the heated breakers. That's what I used it for when I tested the Fleur stuff. DM284.
Mm-hmm.
I used it to find electrical issues. I don't think I used it for refrigerant stuff the whole time, but I could definitely see it happening.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you may only use it once a month, but that time you use it will save your rear end big time. Like you're saying on a reversing valve, man, if you could just snap a picture with the thermal imager instead of having to do the long roundabout, trying to put your temperature clamp on the reversing valve, it would definitely save you some time and save your rear end.
Now, I know we're running out of time here, so I'm going to ask you a couple quick questions. Are you beta testing anything right now you can tell us about?
No.
All right. The second question is, are you beta testing anything?
I am beta testing some stuff, absolutely. But I cannot elaborate what we got going on at the moment.
Is that stuff represented by a Canon?
Maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing about that. I know we're going to hear about it on your podcast. That's Tool Pros podcast. Hopefully I'll drag you back here because one of the things I want to drag you back for, and I told you about this, is the fact that we're going to be using the Zoomlock again a lot here in the field. Yeah. So maybe we can have a powwow about that here in a few months after I use it a little bit more. I want to discuss your history with it again because I want to get sort of an update because a lot of the guys talk about it's not going to last. Now, you've been using it for a few years now. And by that time, we'll tack a little bit more time onto that. And we'll have a full discussion on it if you want.
Absolutely. No, I'd be glad to come back and talk about it, man. Yeah, I'm excited that you're going to be using it some more in the field and you'll be able to get some good video and all that good stuff because you're a lot better at the editing and making stuff look pretty and appetizing. Believe
it or not, in about an hour from now, we'll be going live. Actually, less than an hour, about 40 minutes. Will be a live stream video, 30 minutes long of all the jobs I did this week.
Very nice. That's awesome.
Episode 26 is here. It's already passed by the time you hear this. Brent, do you have any parting words? Anything else you want to say about either your podcast? Do you have any social links? I know you're on Instagram. I'm guessing you already had the Facebook group because we talked about that earlier. Anything else we need to follow you on?
We do have a YouTube. You can go follow us at Tool Pros Podcast on YouTube. Billy is responsible for that. So if you don't see any videos coming out within the next week or two,
wait a second.
I want you to send him some hate mail.
That's like saying that something bad is on YouTube. You're going to go over there and see nothing. I want to get out in front of that. It's not my fault.
No, I'm just joking, guys. I really am. No, we are going to start putting some more stuff on that. Our Instagram, of course, our Facebook, and listen to the podcast. That's the best thing you can do for us. Support us by listening to the podcast. Tell your friends all about it, and we appreciate it.
That's every Wednesday morning, typical release, right around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, sir. Every Wednesday. It normally hits the iTunes store around 6 a.m.
Every Wednesday, you'll see a new podcast unless Brian's been drinking. Then you'll see it on Thursday. So, Brent, I appreciate you coming on here. We'll have you back again maybe 4 months from now or so once the summer gets going. See if we can't drag you away from some of those service calls, if that's even going to be possible. If I'm going to be able to do it, it'll be a crapshoot to say the least. So I appreciate you coming on. Can't wait to see you again.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this audio podcast on YouTube. Feel free to leave a comment. In fact, I suggest that you do. That would be great. Give me some feedback on what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. I'd love to hear from you. All around me right now, you see a bunch of circles. Click those circles. There's 3 great guys there. AK HVAC, great educational content. Also a flair for the cinematic. I think you'll enjoy that. Anti-DIY HVAC is picking up where a lot of us left off with the service call videos. Great content. The only fault that I have with him is he really likes Train. I'm just kidding. That's no fault at all. He's a great guy, makes great stuff, and has great giveaways on his channel. Make sure you subscribe to him. Also, you see Dave from NorCal. NorCal is the man. You want to see service calls on random stuff? Watch NorCal. He's great. You'll really enjoy it, and you'll really learn a lot from all 3 of these guys. Of course, there's one of my videos up there too. Take a look at that. Hope you enjoy that as well. And follow our content on HVAC Shop Talk Radio and also the HVAC Shop Talk podcast, and all the links you need are right there in the description. Thank you for listening to the podcast, guys, and watching the video, and I hope I see you on the next one.